Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the podcast where a real statistics professor
and his cousin Jared
and his friend Jake
gives you sports betting tips. I'm Professor Sides. You can follow me and find all my picks on Twitter at Professor Sides. You can follow my cousin Jared on Twitter at Cousin Jared, and you can follow my friend Jake on Twitter at myfriend_Jake. Today is Friday, February 25th, 2022, and this episode covers today's best college basketball bets. In case you're new here, I have built a mathematical model that predicts what the spread and total should be for every Division I college basketball game. That information, along with a graded A, B, or C pick for each of today's games not covered in this episode, is available in the Google Sheet linked in the show's description. A picks are the ones I love, B picks are the ones I like, and C picks are the leans. However, please remember that good and bad variance will occur, so as much as I'd like to say the model will be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Yesterday, the model did not do as well overall, gave back some of our weekly winnings. We are still up 6 units on the week for all model picks. Our podcast picks, that kind of was how I did yesterday as well, not as good. I'm sitting at 22, 22, and 3 for the week. Jake, you are at 13, 12, and 2 for the week. So we're hanging in there this week.
Right.
Hopefully we can close out strong. What is one thing we need to know before we get started?
Look, I don't know if you all out there have been paying attention to all these small teams and the ones that don't really make TV, but now's the time to do it if you want to get ready for March Madness. There's several conferences that their last regular season game is tonight, and so that means the next is the tournament, and then that's going to show you who's going to be there in March. Now's the time to start paying attention to get that little step ahead of everybody when the brackets come out.
Yep, next week with a small conference tournament should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and there's a reason I started coming on the podcast in February, because that's when the games start to matter. So
there you go. Before we get to today's slate, reminder, please hit that like button if you're on YouTube, subscribe, or follow if you aren't yet. We appreciate both of those things a lot, and they help us out greatly. Share with a friend if you know others in the game, and drop a comment on YouTube or Twitter. We love those and try to respond to as many as we can. Our game breakdowns, yesterday I went 2 and 2. Jake, you went 3 and 2, so we did okay here yesterday. Let's see if we can improve on that today. We're going to start off with 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 Central, so an hour earlier than usual start time. The MAC seems to do this on Fridays, have that little bit earlier of a game for everybody to get your weekend started earlier. Ohio's a 7-point favorite with a total of 133.5 as of this morning. The model makes the total 133.6. So I'm going to give y'all, for the first time in ages, I'm going to give y'all a C pick on over Ohio. And I only say that specifically because of the fact that this number was about 130 yesterday when I first saw lines. And so if y'all saw a tweet about the numbers throughout the day yesterday, hopefully you were able to jump on a much better number and get over that. So I'm riding with you guys who saw that and took that over. But at this number, I have a lot less confidence in it than I would have yesterday. Jake, Ohio -7. Can they cover that big number at home?
I'm still recovering from that egg they dropped on us last time we had them on the breakdown, but I don't think that's repeatable. I don't think they go and make 2 shots in the first half again. So I'm gonna go ride with them. I think they do it. I think they win this by double digits. I think Marcus Sears is just too much for Akron to handle. They're a very good shooting team. They came out and won their last game by almost 20. I think they're going to come back and do this. They take care of the ball well with just shy of 11 turnovers a game with about 15% of their possessions, putting them pretty high up in the rankings there. And they forced 14 turnovers, which means on average they're winning the turnover battle. And I think that's where this goes is Akron turns the ball over too much, Ohio takes advantage, and Marcus Sears dominates the game.
All right, Jared, you're my total guy. I put the numbers out. Did you grab the over yesterday like you should have?
well, of course, I am a star pupil. Of course, I have learned from the professor, and I took the number yesterday.
All right.
But yeah, when this total moved 2.5 points overnight, usually I would be scrambling to come up with what to say right now. But it actually doesn't change what I wrote down at all. The model is 2 and 5 on Akron totals this month, 3 and 4 on Ohio totals this month, and just overall, the MAC has been so tough to pin down on totals. You've got some games that go way under, and then you've got like some games with Buffalo and Ball State that are going to like the 190s. Running back what we did in the Mountain West in college football, I'm this close to stopping totals on the MAC.
Just be like, I'm done.
I'm just done, not touching any of them. I don't care what the edge is. But again, I over 131 or something like that. If it drops back down, I would take. But I'm giving this one a wide berth. Just the MAC and totals hasn't gone well recently.
And it's funny you mentioned that. Every year it seems like that. There's always some teams or some conferences that you just, by the end of the season, you're just like, you know what? There are a lot of other games. I don't have to mess with these because this conference or this set of teams has just really upset me.
And what you're describing is every game in the Southland Conference.
Oh my gosh, yes. We don't talk about the Southland on here, but if y'all paid attention to the totals in the Southland games, my model has been all over the map. The totals are way up, and the model's trying to catch up. And then every once in a while, there'll be one under by like 30 points. It's a bonkers league. We'll move on to another game just a little bit later than that, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, Northwestern at Penn State. Penn State is a short 1.5 point home favorite in a game that usually would be not be talked about Big Ten standards, but on a short slate here on a Friday night, this is where we are. I'm taking over 128.5 on this one. The model thinks 131. Penn State does play really slow. I think the number's just too low, though. I think this one can get up into the 130s by the hair of its chinny chin chin. Jake, who wins between Northwestern and Penn State?
I'm actually going Northwestern here. I think they get it done. I think in the last game that they dropped to Penn State, Lundy had a huge game. I don't think that's repeatable. And Penn State plays slow, and Northwestern doesn't play fast by any chance. But even with that slow pace that Penn State plays, they still turn the ball over 12 times a game, which works out to about 19% of their possessions. And I think Northwestern is going to take advantage of that this time, unlike last time. And Boo Booey, which is just a fun name to say, and Lance will do enough to win the game and cover the 1.5 they need.
I just have to say, how do you turn the ball over on 20% of your possessions? My mind is blown. You guys, Jared, what do you have for us?
Hey, if you turn it over on 20% of your possessions, that's potentially a lot of fast break points for the other team.
I like it.
Let's go the over 128.5 here. Northwestern's been an over team. Penn State is not an over team for sure. But two things put this over the top for me. Number one, like scoring has been up the past week or so to actually the past month in college basketball. Scoring's really been up. But I'm going to make a college football analogy here. I know you're shocked. Northwestern is the Nebraska football of Big Ten basketball. They are going to find a way to lose a game. So when Nebraska's heartbreak happens today, when Northwestern's heartbreak happens today,
same thing. I'm
going to guess that it is in a high-scoring game because Northwestern can get up and down the court like we talked about those turnovers. So I'm going the over 128.5 here.
All right. Same time slot, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. St. Louis at Richmond. Probably the most interesting game of the night here. Richmond is a short 1.5 point home favorite. I've got a B pick on St. Louis +3. I think this is a toss-up game. I don't really see how you really like one side of it. Sorry, the screen is wrong enough. You're looking at that. Should say Richmond is a 3-point favorite. The model thinks Richmond should only be 1.5. So sorry about that. I'm 7-3 on St. Louis toss-up game. I like taking the field goal if you're of the money line. If you like that type of play, this is a solid look there, getting a little bit of value there. Jake, can St. Louis go on the road and win, or at least cover the 3 points?
Yeah, I think they cover it, and I think they win outright. They won the last game by 7 at home. St. Louis is a very balanced team. They're not the greatest offensive team in the world, but they're not too dependent on one guy, where Richmond is really dependent on Burton to score and Gilliard to get the offense moving. So as long as St. Louis takes care of the ball reasonably well, I think they come out with the win. They're just a very good free throw shooting team, and they've got a really good offensive player in Jimerson. And then Yuri Collins is an incredible guard, too, that really is the key piece to that offense that gets everything going, leading the team in assists and just overall in charge of the offense. But I think St. Louis has got enough to get it done and come out with the win and cover for sure.
Goes Jared?
Model is 5-3 on St. Louis totals this month, 1-5 on Richmond totals, but 3 of those losses have come by a combined 5 points on the totals. So the model has really been pretty spot on with the Richmond totals. So I'm going to take the over 143 here. That's close to the limit of where I would take it at. I probably wouldn't go above maybe 143.5.
All right, all right. Yeah, Richmond being a 3-point favorite in the game, just a little surprising to me. It almost makes it seem like these two teams are relatively equal. I think St. Louis is the better team here. Richmond's actually underperformed my number, so if that holds true, then yeah, I think St. Louis has a great chance to get a win. Because Jared, you like that over, so that's your notes for that game. 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Texas State is a 2-point road favorite at Troy with a total of 128. The model makes this one 131.5, so I'm taking over that 128.5 number. My recap of this one is pretty similar to Northwestern Penn State. It's the same number. The model makes it the same. I like over. I think the number's just a little bit too low. Texas State is the Penn State in this scenario. They just play pretty slow. The interesting note about them is the model has struggled with Texas State. It kind of just says play over every time, even though they're so slow. So it hasn't really picked up extremely well on how they've played, but all season on edges, the model is still 9-8 on their overs, so it's not like it's been a recipe for disaster. I think Troy wants to play at a little bit faster pace than Texas State does, and that'll get us over that 128.5 number. Jake, you're more or less picking who wins the game. Does Texas State go on the road and get the victory, or does Troy win at home?
Yeah, I think they do. This is one of those small conferences I was talking about at the beginning. Like, this is their last regular season game. Texas State, with a win, wraps up first place. If not, they stand a chance of dropping to third with the way the standings are. So it's a big game for them. They lost this previous matchup, but had their absolute worst offensive game of the year, and Troy, I think, had their best. It was kind of really drastic in how the shots went in. But Texas State is actually a good shooting team. They just don't shoot the three ball a lot. They hit about 38% of their threes, but only make 6 a game. So they're just not shooting the ball a lot. I'm not sure why, if you're shooting that well. But they hit 75.9% of their free throws, which is really good in these tight games to have a team that can finish at the line. And they can be just a tiny bit sloppy with about 12 turnovers a game with that slow pace. Kind of hurts them, kind of like we just mentioned with Penn State. But Troy is is one of the worst teams at taking care of the ball. They rank 339th with about 15.5 on the year turnovers a game. And then in the last 3, that's gone up to almost 18. So I don't see any way that Troy takes care of the ball enough to keep Texas State from winning this game again. And and Troy's defense isn't that great. They're very mediocre, but when you look at the metrics, playing in a small conference that you're going to run into, but they only force 12 turnovers a game. So they're constantly losing that battle, and that's just too many extra possessions for a Texas State team.
Yeah, it feels like with having the over there with all those turnovers, it's gonna be one of those games watching it where you're rooting for the chaos, the turnovers, the quick scores, and the coaching to call a timeout. And you're like, no, don't call a timeout. They're having fun. Let them play.
Let them run.
Yeah, if you have the under on those, you're like, coach, call a timeout, slow this down, right? But if you have the over, you're like, no, let them go, right? So it'll be interesting to see if we have any crazy frenetic turnover stretches like that. Cousin Jared, what do you have for us?
So the model says this should be 131.5, which would be a clear overplay. I'm going to pull a not so fast.
All right.
Here. Troy has gone under in 9 of 15 conference games, and 3 of Texas State's last 4 games haven't gone above 118. There is just nothing, to me anyway, that feels worse than taking the over in a college basketball game, and you realize, 5 minutes in, there is no way this game is going to go over. So I'm staying away from this play for now. Maybe I'll talk myself into it later in the day, but I just can't bring myself to recommend betting the over in this game right now.
So you're hoping the number drops a little bit, that way you at least get a little more value on the over?
No, it's probably just like a mental thing, whether I can talk myself into it or not.
Okay, fair enough. It can't be as bad as a Navy game, though, right? At least we're not in that category.
Yeah. No, it's not that bad.
All right,
scoring 28.
Or well, yeah. I had William and Mary yesterday, and I thought, Northeastern is very bad, and I know William and Mary is bad, but 28 in a game, and if you told me, I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but if you told me that I think Northeastern scored 61 in that game, if you'd have told me that William and Mary holds them to 61, I'm getting +9, I'd be like, this is double down. I mean, at some point, you obviously be responsible with your bankroll, but if you told me that, I would say that's a strong play. I'd say that's an A pick, and
yeah.
28 points. Anyway, that takes us to the solo Jake segment here. Again, rather than have him try to talk me into or out of anything, Jake has done so well in these games where their model edge hasn't been very strong. I'm just going to let him have the floor. I'm going to tee him up here for Appalachian State at Arkansas State. Arkansas State is a 2-point home favorite. Jake, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so this same conference as Texas State, and this is one of the teams. They're just a half game behind Texas State, so they need the win, and they're rooting. They're all for Troy to grab that first place in the conference. But Appalachian State is actually 6-4-1 as a road dog with 5 outright wins. So that's pretty impressive. That means they travel very well. They've won their previous 7. They're just not good at the free throw line, so that scares me a little bit with hitting under 66%. But I believe they take care of the ball so well with just like 10.1 turnovers a game, and they're a very suffocating defense, like kind of in that Virginia line of thinking, where they don't force you to turn the ball over a lot. They just suffocate you at all no good shots. And I think they do so well at that they're going to come out with a win with extra motivation to grab that first place, because it's very key in these small ones, so that way you don't see the third place team. And Arkansas State is one of the worst teams at taking care of the ball. They've averaged like almost 16 a game, like all year, and it's staying the same in the last 3, like in the last 5, however you want to look at it. It's just they're very consistent at giving the ball away. And I think that will be the biggest difference in these small line games. Turnovers mean a lot, and I think Appalachian State gets it done.
We can't hear you, Professor.
Yeah, I'm sure he is agreeing with everything I just said.
Yes, exactly. I was just saying that Jake is a genius, and and his record proves it in these segments, right? So yes,
that's why it's solo Jake. That's why it's solo Jake.
Exactly. No A plays for me today. There are only 16 games on the slate, and nothing meets the criteria for an A play. So we're going to roll us right into the buzzer beaters segment. Jake, I believe you are back with some buzzer beaters today.
Yeah, found some I like today. I like this Princeton team -8. They're just way too good for this Harvard team, and they're on a roll right now. So I like them -8, and I love Coastal Carolina -6.5. Not sure why it's that low. I think it should be a double-digit guy, because Coastal Carolina is going to go in there and take care of business. And I just don't think Little Rock is anywhere near the same level of team.
Yeah, I like both of those. And on Princeton, I saw that number was coming down. As that number comes down to 7.5 or 7 or something, I like it even more. So yeah, a couple of good ones there. My buzzer beaters, my fave here, 1-1 here on the week. Did not get the victory last night, but I got a late one for you here, 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central. San Diego State -21.5. It always blows my mind when the model says to lay a number this big. I try to pull the numbers as close to 0 as I can, because I don't want to just constantly be laying these big numbers. But the model says 23. I'm 3-0 backing San Diego State. San Jose State is really bad, so I'm rolling with that, even though I don't love laying giant numbers of that nature. The best B-side, we are 15-12 all-time here. I'm taking Louisiana +6.5 at Georgia State. Louisiana has been underperforming my numbers by about a point per game, but Georgia State's been underperforming them by over 2 points per game. So I think that's too many points in a value play on Louisiana. The only hope there, of course, that we don't succumb to the same fate we did last night. A couple of my A picks losing by 1 point. So that one, I'm just hoping that it doesn't do the same thing and Louisiana loses by 7. But I think there's still value there on that one. I've got the over of the day for you, 4 and 5 all time on these over daily picks in the buzzer beater segment. 7 p.m. Eastern game already mentioned by Jake, that Harvard-Princeton game. I'm going over 141.5. The model is 10-1 on Harvard over edges, 3-1 on under edges. So it's not just a blindly play over. The model's done really well with Harvard. I think that total should be more around 145. And my last one, I've got the under of the day for you here, 3 and 5 all time in this segment. I've got 6 p.m. Central under 135.5 in Louisiana Monroe, Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern has been more of an under team than Monroe has been an over team, so that balances out. Both play kind of slow. I think this one might be a boring game, and so I still like it to get under that 135.5 number.
Yeah, San Diego State is going to just run San Jose State out of the building. It's not even going to be close. That defense is nasty, and San Jose State does not have the talent to keep up. And like I've mentioned before, one of my favorite pastimes is fading San Jose State.
Maybe San Jose State scores 28 points tonight, and we could just have a good laugh about it. Cousin Jared, you got some buzzer beaters for us.
Yeah, so I also endorse the over in the Harvard-Princeton game. I think that's a solid bet. Model is 4-1 on Monmouth totals in February, so let's go under 131.5 in Monmouth and St. Peter's. I'm even seeing that going up to 132 in some places. And then maybe my favorite bet on the board today, Iona and Canisius. Model is 4-1 on Iona totals this month, 2-1 on Canisius totals. So let's go the over 144 there.
All right, I like it.
Because I can't pronounce that C name.
Yeah, right. I've actually Googled some of these names, right? But I think I've heard some people, I think it's Canisius, but I have heard some people say Canisius, but I don't think that's how you say it. I think it's Canisius, right?
Who's to say?
Who's to say, right? I finally figured out it's Bellarmine, right? I actually did Google that one because they're a new team, a pretty good one. So yeah, some of these smaller schools, right? At some point, we don't talk about them enough, so it's hard to figure out how to say their names.
Right.
That's all we've got for you today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. Reminder, check out that Google Sheet for all picks and totals on today's games not covered in this episode. If you haven't done so yet, click that subscribe button. We'll get you a new episode every weekday of the college basketball season. Usually a live Q&A episode on Saturday mornings. We won't be able to do that tomorrow because of a conflict with Jake's schedule, but we will do our normal episode and drop that in that same time slot, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, and then we'll interact in the chat if you want to ask about some other games. So we will see you tomorrow. Until then, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.